Well, this is the third or fourth time I've tried to start recording today, and for random reasons it didn't happen. Today I'm going to be doing, continuing my series on the Idaho Republican Platform. This is try number 4 now, because in the middle of doing number 3, the Lori Vallow Daybell verdict came in. And so I was just going to stop it. There was no, plus there was some noise in the background and etc. So yeah, so I'm doing this video, and then I am going to be doing an channel update video of sorts right after. I must apologize for my attire. I usually, as my usual uniform. Usually I do the whole Steve Rogers thing, but whatever. It's just not going to happen today. Whatever. It's not like I'm really going anywhere anyway. Making sure, yep, the audio might be a little off because I'm doing some new mic stuff. It might not work properly. We'll find out. So, gonna transition here. So, we've got Articles 2 and 3 I'm going to be covering today. Article 2, citizen involvement in government. That's a very Republican notion, to have citizen involvement and voter participation, things like that. So Article 2, citizen involvement in government. The Idaho Republican Party believes that government works best when its citizens become actively involved. The party encourages all citizens to engage in healthy debate on all issues that will increase citizen control of government. And that last phrase right there, citizen control of government, is a very Republican idea, that the voters are in charge, and it is not a top-down thing. It is a voter-up thing. The citizens and the voters should be the ones in charge. Section 1, we encourage all citizens to educate themselves in constitutional government and to be full participants in the political process. Basically rehashing what I just said. It's this thing, this grand experiment that we call the United States of America, works better when people are involved. Section 2, we seek to heighten the level of discourse by encouraging all office holders, candidates, and citizens to be civil, dignified, honest, and forthright in their discussions, actions, statements, and political processes. This includes the actions of special interest groups who provide support for or against any Idaho candidate. Somebody's trying to text me right now, and I'm totally not responding. Now, some people might say that I'm a bit of a hypocrite with Section 2 right here, and I would disagree. Now, civility will only be appropriate in a civil medium. If you count social media as a civil medium or a dignified medium, you're insane. So, I'm often as civil as can be in those places, though. Honest and forthright, and that's usually the rebuttal that I have to anybody's criticism of what I might do or say on a platform. And well, thing is that, and this is what I say about these videos a lot, where I am not unbiased. I am me. That's literally what I say. And then, so I would rather be honest and forthright than any of the other descriptors there. And since, and plus, there's a difference between being unsignal and undignified and just simply being a little bit brash or being a little bit outspoken. This grand experiment of ours kind of doesn't work if we don't have outspoken people. And as far as civil and dignified, I am the most civil and dignified in all political processes. I mean, there's a reason why I just jumped straight into the fire of being a parliamentarian back in the day. And so, and that is a very Republican idea. So we'll move on to the next one. Now, oh, and also, this should extend to any special interests groups or some side project or what have you. I mean, we shouldn't be stalking each other. We shouldn't be saying untrue things, that kind of thing, you know. I mean, plus, a lot of people who, you know, who claim that, you know, claim the moniker of being more civil and dignified are the worst offenders of it usually. I mean, one of the great examples in recent years is a former representative. He tried to run for Senate, totally lost. His name was Greg Cheney. He's one of the worst examples of why Section 2 the way it is. He was only superficially civil, dignified, honest, and forthright. You know, he's actually, you know, under the surface, he was none of those things. Section 3, we'll scroll down here. We believe primary elections in the Idaho Republican Party should be open. Sorry, I was getting real thirsty. Should be open to all people who have affiliated as Republicans at least 1 year prior to the primary election and who support a vast majority of the Idaho Republican Platform. To allow those who have no loyalty or allegiance to the party or its platform and resolutions to select our candidates is simply improper. And that, in and of itself, is also a very Republican idea. I mean, if you're going to be consistent, if you're going to be correct and upright in your dealings with your fellow man, if you're gonna make representations of yourself as a Republican, then the platform should be what that is measured against. People who do not follow the platform or don't have at least a majority in common with the platform, well, those people aren't Republicans, and it is quite all right that they are something else. It is not all right that they make representations that they are Republican, though. I had a whole other rant about that in the last take. I'm just not going to go through it again. I mean, we are going to keep going, as it were. I've been at this for about 7 minutes now. Okay. Whatever. Oh, it's too far. So Article 3, Education. Now, I'm going to admit something right off the bat here, is that I have really only been involved in the education for myself and for my own purposes. So I'm not as strong on a lot of these issues because, well, I don't have kids. I don't have kids in school. I'm not homeschooling any kids. All of that. So there, a lot of these I'll just have to try to speak to as best I can. Article 3, Education. The Idaho Republican The Idaho Republican Party recognizes that the future of this great state lies with our faith and reliance on God, our Creator, and our strong efforts to uphold family values, and in the quality of education provided for its citizens. We believe that successful education is a joint responsibility of the individual, the family, and the community. Those are all three separate, separately and together. As with the government in general, we believe the most effective, responsible, and responsive education system is that system closest to the people. And that those three words that were in the sentence right there, it took me several takes to actually get it right in the last recording. But yeah, and it's kind of an acknowledgement. I know I said the whole thing at some point, but I'll just reference, the last verse of the Star-Spangled Banner. It's very much that kind of thing. We have to praise the power that hath made and preserved us a nation. And that's a dual, triple meaning. It means not only the faith in God our Creator, but also the people here on earth that keep it going, as well as the system that we have. They're mostly referring to the Constitution there, but the consequences of the Constitution as well. Section 1. We recognize the importance of early childhood education. We also believe that individuals, families, and private sector best meet the needs of early childhood education. Only in the rarest of situations should government assume the responsibilities reserved to parents. Now, that is a very Republican idea, as I always say, and as I always say, if you have a difference of opinion there, that is quite all right. What's not all right is to represent yourself as having that opinion when you don't. And really, if you have a different view and you're running as a Republican, you should be very clear with your constituents and your voters on what that difference is, because it might be quite all right for you to have that difference with the voter and yourself, and they still might vote for you. But you got to be clear about it. If you're being an honest person, and if you're being a true Republican, you got to be honest about that difference. So, subsection A. Mentioning it again. Our nation's founding documentation in public education. The United States of America was founded on legal, political, and economic systems based on Judeo-Christian principles. Now, and nowhere in this is going to say that we require or we would prefer you to be one religion over another. It's just that the way that we are doing things and where it all came from the Judeo-Christian principle, which there really shouldn't be any problem with that, especially since most systems in the world are more or less compatible with a lot of the precepts in that anyway. We support curricula whose foundations, text, and supplemental documentation are the original founded documents, including the Declaration of Independence, the United States Constitution, and the Founders' Writings. What's his name? Antonin Scalia has a lot to say about a lot of that. I've been listening to a lot of his stuff as of late, and has a lot to do with that. I'll just say that. Religious freedom in public schools. We believe that school administrators and officials should not infringe on Idaho school students and staff's First Amendment rights to pray and engage in religious speech individually or in groups on school property without government interference. We believe the legislature should end censorship of discussion of religion in our scroll down of religion in our founding documents and encourage discussing those documents, including the Bible, as their basis. Students and district personnel have the right to display religious items on school property. Now, that one's kind of going towards the edge of what could be considered Republican, but it's correct. I mean, as long as you're not affecting anybody else, you should be able to pray, and you should be able to be wearing religious items and whatnot. As long as the state isn't made to endorse any of what you're doing, then I see no issue with that at all. That's another very Republican notion, is to be firm in your religious conviction in public. I guess I should put it that way. Section 2, we believe parents have the right to educate their children at home, that court rulings that undermine these rights devalue the important role of parents and family in a child's education. Yeah, we are against the government interference in the parent-child relationship, especially one of that nature. You might have a different view on such things. Let's talk about it, though. You know, put a comment down in the comment section, or send off an email, or let's talk about it, or let's do something. If you think differently, okay, let's talk about it. Now, section 3, we believe in improving the quality of education for every child. Went too far. We believe in improving the quality of education for every child by maximizing parental choice. This will be accomplished through money following students to their parents' school of choice. We support all educational environments desired by parents, including public charter schools, public virtual charter schools, homeschools, schooling at home, micro schools, learning pods, co-ops, private and parochial schools, and accountable public school systems. Accountable. So Section 3 is basically just school choice. That's what that is, and you know what? That's, again, the Republican view of it. It's all right if you have a little bit of a different view, but especially with certain parts of this, you got to come up with a really good reason to be against school choice, especially if you want to represent yourself as a Republican. Just saying. I mean, it's not incompatible with being a Republican that you have a kid in a public school or that you are going to a public university or some such. It is quite incompatible, however, if you require the government to be the one educating. You put requirements, or at least really undue or onerous action on anybody exercising public choice school choice outside of the public school systems. So moving on, we believe all students are entitled to our support and to fair and equitable funding, and therefore strongly support the adoption of a change to Idaho's public school funding formula that includes school choice through an education savings account and more evenly distributes the state funds while holding our rural schools harmless. Nothing in this section compels a family to receive in any way government support. So that's really just following a lot of the practicals of the section right before. Just a lot of the practical matters of school choice. Sure. A student in a public school should be receiving just as much funding as the student being otherwise educated under the means of the state. I mean, if had to sneeze there and couldn't stop or pause. So, I mean, if you are not of great means, it is one of the government's responsibilities to at least make sure that the populace is educated. So, there you go. Moving on to Section 5, we support efforts to improve our public school system, including introducing market forces to our school system and providing our public school system and its leaders with ample discretion in hiring decisions and how to best spend the funds provided to it by taxpayers to meet local needs. We also recognize that more government spending does not necessarily generate improved schools. That last sentence, I think, should be more prominent in this, if I were really being honest. I often ask for it, and knowing well that it's kind of impossible to get this. If it's possible to get any metrics on dollar spent per student outcome, because student outcome is kind of a nebulous thing anyway. But we need to be real about a lot of the metrics that are used to measure success in the public school system. They often talk about dollars spent per student in states or in school district, but that only tells us the money that they threw at a student. That doesn't say anything about what was done with that money and was the student any better off for it. In fact, it kind of covers up any of such information. It's like, oh, well, this education system is better because it's spending more money per student. That's actually very backwards, and it's often used to disguise any actuality with a student. Section 6. We strongly support professional and technical and continuing education programs that provide career readiness and college preparation. Well, yeah, the country kind of doesn't work if there isn't stuff like that. So you know what? Yeah, I don't imagine why anyone would really have a different view, but you know what? If you do, be honest about it. Let's talk about it. Section 7. We recognize the importance of Idaho's higher education system in continuing The education of our citizens, the education and research that occurs at our institutions of higher learning contributes substantially to vigorous economy, heightened competition, and okay, you know what? Just what I said about the previous section. I mean, the country kind of doesn't work without continuing education, higher education, etc. Section 8, we are strongly opposed to any social justice indoctrination that may occur at any level of Idaho's education system and support policy and financial measures to prohibit universities, colleges, or public schools from incorporating social justice indoctrination theories, i.e. critical race theory. What?
I think you're talking a little fast. Slow down a little.
Okay, fine. Critical race theory, transformative social emotional learning, diversity, equity, and inclusion, replacement theory, queer theory, etc. into their policies, curriculum, and or course materials. This should not be a surprise that that is there and it's written like that. We are, of course, Republicans, we are naturally against any real kind of indoctrination that the state might be handing down at all, much less those of what is referred to as social justice. Of course, it's very antisocial and it's very unjust when you get into it. You know, critical race theory. Although that I've noticed that theory hasn't been term hasn't been used as much. Critical race theory. Sometimes it's, equity is one that's used a lot more these days. Queer theory, a lot of LGBTQIA++, WTF, LOL, whatever. It is. I really don't understand that if you are an actual Republican, why you would have any problem with Section 8 of this article right here. But you know what? As I always say, be honest about that if you have a problem or a difference there, and let's talk about it. If you want, if you want to convince other people, or maybe you're not even trying to convince, you're just letting people know, hey, I consider myself a Republican and I have a different view on the stuff in Section 8. You know what? At least tell people. Section 9, we are proud of our many dedicated professional teachers and educators who have committed their lives to educating Idaho's children. We value the contribution our teachers make to society. We support the efforts to reward great teachers for their hard work. We support incentives for teachers so that our best educators are willing to remain in the classroom and work with our children. We believe that teachers should be treated like professionals and compensated at a level commensurate, is that the right spelling of it? Commensurate with their abilities and in a manner that rewards quality instruction, not time in the profession or amount of education. So this is another thing that it's scratching the surface of why a lot of our political adversaries say the false line or false notion that Republicans are anti-education or anti-teacher. Now, we're very much pro-education and pro-teacher, but we're very anti what we find them doing a lot of the times, because a lot of times we're not finding them educating. We find them indoctrinating. Not only that, but we find them very actively alienating them from their families or the culture that their families want their children to grow up in. Not only that, but in recent years it's gotten worse. To the point where excuse me, just one second. There's no way to pause with OBS, I found out. But yeah, we're very much against a lot of the stuff that's been happening recently. I mean, we even have teachers nowadays who are trying to convince children that they are trans, that they are a boy instead of being a girl, or a girl instead of being a boy, or some kind of two-spirit, or one of the other letters in the big acronym kind of thing. And that's a problem, because that in and of itself is way far away from the notion of a child should be educated. Of course, a child should be educated. You know, not only just like the basic stuff like reading, writing, arithmetic, but also have a good grounding in a lot of the sciences and the classics and humanities and so forth. But that's you know, and we get a lot of notions to the contrary, like, oh, that's not actually happening in schools. Well, yes, there is. Well, yeah, if it is happening, it's still your fault, and blah, blah, blah. Well, here's the thing. Why is a teacher saying anything about gender ideology to anyone under the age of 12, or basically any kid, anyone under the age of 18, to any minor? I haven't had a good answer to that, and I've been asking that for some years now. So we'll move on there. Section 10. We believe that in order for public education to be successful, schools and families should work together with mutual respect and cooperation. We believe parental rights are paramount, and that parents have the God-given right to direct their child's education. This includes the right to decide what their children are learning, the right to inspect any educational materials used in the education of their child, the right to determine their child's health, safety, and medical treatment, including masks and vaccinations, and the right to visit their child's classroom with limited restrictions. These rights should be enumerated in Idaho Code. And I'll condense that even more. Nothing about a child's education should be hidden from a parent. And that includes what subjects the child's being taught, what kinds of things that the teacher is trying to convince a child of, such as being trans when they're not, or what have you, all kinds of things. Oh, yeah, and you know what? The thing is that we get reports of kids as early as like 3rd grade being taught tenets of communism, not just socialism, but communism. So, yeah, a parent has the absolute right to hear about that kind of thing. They have the right to know about that kind of thing. And the fact that you're hiding it is worse. And don't tell me that kind of thing isn't happening here in Idaho, because we already very well know that it is. Moving on. Section 11. We recognize the increasing role of technology in society. We encourage policymakers and educators to be leaders in promoting such new opportunities while ensuring data privacy for students and parents. Well, yeah, I mean, if we got new tools, if they're right for the situation, use them. Be careful about how you swing the hammer. That's basically it. Okay, so last section in this article. We believe in accountability for those who are making decisions about public education and higher education system in Idaho, and therefore support the direct election of members of the Idaho State Board of Education on a regional basis, thereby providing each of Idaho a voice. So, I gotta admit I'm not entirely up on the details of this one, but I can say that it is absolutely a representative Republic thing to have this kind of election instead of whatever the board makeup is right now. The having things at a more direct choice of the voter, you know, people to represent the voter, that's an inherently more Republican idea than what's going on now. So with that, I am going to just close it out right now. I'll transition out real quick. I'll be making another video here pretty soon, but I'm pretty sure, I don't know exactly when I'm going to be doing the next video in the platform series, but I really want it to be soon. I'll be making an update video shortly. Y'all Y'all have a good one.